Morning, guys. We're live on Facebook. It is Thursday, the 25th of January. I hope everyone's doing well. Today, we are drinking out of the Pearl Jam mug for the old coffee. The reason being that Pearl Jam have just, I think, announced that they're going to pledge at least $1 million and hopefully up to $10 million of their own money to homelessness in Seattle. So fair play, lads, and cheers to you guys. So I want to thank everyone for the questions. They're actually really starting to fly in, and it's great that people are actually finding this useful enough benefit, and not only people who are able to watch live at any given time, but for people who are able to watch back or are listening to our podcast. So for those of you who don't know, we do have a podcast channel called Help Me to Parent, and we upload not only all of these as a podcast, but we have plenty of other podcasts as well, answering tons of questions that people are sending in. So we'll see who joins in, and if there's any questions, please do fire them up on the comments below. But we do have some sent in already, so I'm going to kick off with that. Cheers. So the first one is, we are a young couple thinking of starting a family and would like some advice on how best to jointly parent our children. We had different upbringings with good and bad elements and would like to get a good balance for both of us. That's a really good question. It's good to see that people are actually thinking about it. So just because you maybe don't have any children yet, but you're starting to think about having a kid, and you've discussed obviously the backgrounds that you had. So it's really, really good that you're thinking about how best to get the balance between the upbringing that both of you had. I think one of the big things that we certainly cover on all of our parenting courses, that no one actually sits down and plans what they're going to do when they have a child. So they basically have a baby, and it's like, how do I keep this little thing alive? That's the only thing. It's one step in front of the other each day. And for a lot of people, we make a plan on how we're going to buy our first house. We make a plan on how we're going to buy a car. We think about how we're going to plan our wedding, all that kind of stuff. But we rarely actually sit down and plan out what we're going to do and how we're going to bring up our kids. So, and what can happen then is that one day you have a toddler, you're both tired, frustrated, and the toddler does something, and one parent turns around and gives the toddler a smack on the behind, and the other parent is kind of looking there going, did you just actually hit my child? And there's never been that discussion on how you're actually going to deal with those little things, because for one person they might have felt that that's okay, and the other parent, it's just absolutely appalling. So I think the first thing I'd say to you is, look at how you were brought up, and even just make a list of the things that worked for you and the things that didn't work for you. The things that you felt your parents did well, the things you felt your parents didn't do too well, and have that discussion then together around how we think we're going to work best as a couple, and how we think we're going to impact on our kids as best as possible, because there can be no definites. You don't know what kind of child you're going to have. You don't know how you're going to feel after having a child. So I think it's important that you do have that conversation, but have the flexibility that if things don't go the way you expect, which happens a lot for new parents, I would definitely suggest that sitting down and trying to make that plan as much as possible would be really, really positive. Then as things come up, so we give the parents who come in our parenting courses an outline for a parenting plan, where you get to look at what are the things that aren't working for you, because sometimes we can get overwhelmed and feel like nothing's working, but actually a lot of things probably are working. We just don't feel like it is when we're in the middle of the difficulties. So what's important is that we actually sit down, look at those little things that actually are frustrating us, that are annoying us, that we'd like to change. Then look at, okay, well, how might we change it? How we feel about the situation, because sometimes as well, one parent will say, I'm really frustrated that the kids, don't go to bed on time. And the other parent's going, it's not that big a deal. I don't mind chilling out with them. And what happens there is there's a disconnect between someone actually saying, this is really, really frustrating me, and I don't know what to do to deal with it better. So that feeling is real for that person. So we can't just diminish it. So what's important is that we talk about how we feel about any given situation. Then brainstorm ideas on how you're going to come up with different solutions that might work. Together, try and decide which one's going to work best for you, and talk out how you think you're going to implement it as a couple, and give it a go. And the important thing is that if it doesn't work out, go back and try something different that you brainstorm, because you never know what's going to work. And I think it's important that there's no blame apportioned to it. So if one person or one parent has a belief that this is going to work, and the other parent isn't too sure about it, and the first parent is saying, oh, well, look, just go with me on it. Let's just see how we get on. And the second person reluctantly agrees to go with it. If it doesn't work out, what you don't want to get to is the point where the second parent is sitting back and going, see, I told you. Told you it was a waste of time. I told you we shouldn't have bothered. So it's important that we do take the time. And if it doesn't work out, go back and try something different. Because at least you are trying something different. And that's the big thing. None of us know how our kids are going to respond to the different things that we put in place for them. So you have to try it and trust that if it doesn't work out, it's all right. You can try something different. Okay. Question 2. I'm a working mum and my husband works 2 full-time. We have 2 small children and feel really guilty about not having enough time with them in the evenings. We try to cram in playing, etc., but sometimes it leads to chaos and it ends up with upset children and frustrated parents. What can we do as parents to make quality time with our kids, even if it is limited, that doesn't end in overtired and excited kids? Because this is something that really, really does come up an awful lot with a lot of the parents that we work with. So we, as parents, feel that we have to give our kids as much of a well-rounded, so many experiences, as much as we can, as much as, they can possibly handle. And one of the difficulties is that a lot of parents work, or a lot of parents work shifts, and they find it difficult to find that time. So as this mum is saying, that they both get home and it's like, right, we've got to fill 1 full day's worth of missing out on our kids and spending time with our kids into the hour before bed. But that's absolutely crazy. Well, first things is, your kids are going to have some amazing experiences with you, and just as many, if not more, without you, and that's okay. You don't have to give your children exposure to everything, because you can't. It's absolutely impossible. The second thing is, your kids have gone through a day. So whether they're in creche, whether they're in school, whether you have a grandparent or a babysitter looking after your kids during the day, they've had a full day. They've been going all day. It's been busy. They've had fun. They've had, they've been learning things if they're in school or preschool. So it's been pretty full on for them. And although they're going to be excited when they see you too, we all need to have that wind down time before bed. So if we're coming in and getting our kids all hyped up and running around the house and chasing around the house, and then we decide, okay, it's time for bed now, and the kids are having an absolute Mickey fit because they've been forced to go to bed when they've just spent an hour and a half getting hyped up. It makes no logical sense whatsoever. And it's not fair on our kids, because then what happens is we get frustrated at the kids and they get shouted at and they get a consequence, and everybody goes to bed annoyed and upset, when it's actually something that's within our control to change. And so many parents talk about, bedtime being a huge difficulty, and it is. And that's why it's really, really important that we have this wind down and that our kids have this wind down time, so that it's not just all about getting in fun, crazy running around time. We can actually have nice, relaxed, fun time doing a jigsaw, reading a book, kids having a bath where they get to switch off. And, it goes back to what we were talking about in one of the previous ones, where our kids need the time to switch off. We all need the time to switch off and not just cram everything in. So you may be doing that during the week, and then come the weekend, there's, okay, guys, we're heading out. We're going to gymnastics. We're going to football. We're going to go visit Granny and Granddad, and then we're going to fit in a walk in the park because we need to get some fresh air. And everyone goes to bed, and then wake up on Sunday, and it's all right. Now we have other football. We have blah 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 blah, and we're going to go visit all these people. And we get to 7, 8 o'clock on a Sunday evening, and everybody's facing into the new week, going, "Oh my God, I'm so tired." And this is your kids as well, not just you. It's absolutely okay to have a jammy day. It's okay on a Sunday to stick a movie on and everybody sit down and chill out and have some popcorn and take it easy. So we need to take that pressure off ourselves, that we need to give our children all the experiences in the world, because it's impossible. We just can't do it. And what happens then is that we feel like failures as parents because we're not doing it. Whereas our kids might be looking at something that we're trying to get them involved in and going, I absolutely hate this, every single minute of it. So take the pressure off yourself and also off your kids. So what I'd suggest, during the week, when you get home from work, it's okay to have calm down time. It's okay to have relaxed time and the build up to bed, because it's meant to be working down so they're getting to a point that they're able to fall asleep when they're hitting the bed. Okay? There's no pressure. Your kids are going to love those times as much as they're going to love the running around, chasing, screaming, jumping over every sofa and everything. So when you get to the weekends then, do have your times, do have your trips, and, let your kids take part in the activities that they want to take part in. But it's okay to have quiet time at the weekends as well. Okay? And don't feel under pressure to have, picnics and have to have, wonderful experiences that are captured on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter. It doesn't matter. What you're seeing online is not the case. So all these perfect families that you're scrolling past who do these lovely things and lovely activities, they shout, they fight, they argue, just like every other house in the world. It's just, for some reason, we try to create this perfect picture of ourselves and our families and our children's on social media, when that's not the reality all the time. It may be like that most of the time, but not all of the time. Okay. My 4-year-old son is getting more difficult to discipline. He is old enough to understand that his behavior is wrong, but we need some ideas for better discipline for his age. Okay, again, it's a time when parents do struggle. I suppose with a 4-year-old, they're probably either going to Montessori school or a creche, or they're getting ready to actually start primary school. And all of a sudden, they're starting to realize that they're not the center of the universe, that there is this big bad world out there, and that not everybody is there for their every need and to take care of their every want. So what I'd say to you is, if your child is pushing back, the boundaries and consequences that you had in place up until this point, they got your child to this point and they probably worked to a certain extent. But throughout our children's lives, we have to alter the consequences and we have to alter the boundaries. And look, why do we have boundaries in place for kids? First off, for safety. So we don't let them run across the road in case they get knocked down. We don't let them, we don't let them go up to the fire and stick their hand in the fire just to see how hot it is. We do it for their safety. The second thing is, we do it so that they can understand the structure of the world we live in. So for right or for wrong, they're going to have to get up at a certain time, to go to school at a certain time, and have their lunch at a certain time, and come home and have homework and whatever in bed. So we live in a structured society. So unless you're heading off out to the middle of a forest and going to bring up your kids yourself with no outside influences, we have structure. Also for their personal boundaries, so they know what's okay and what's not okay for them. Okay, so that's something that's really important. As they grow, that they have those boundaries to know that we're going to stop them and let them know that this is not okay, and you don't have to put up with this, or you don't have to actually respond like this. And this is more so when it comes into the kind of preteen, teen years, where, you know, you're going to have those conversations around taking naked selfies on Snapchat, or, you know, Instagram, or whatever it might be. So it's important that we're able to, you know, help our kids to understand that I don't have to do X or Y. And then lastly, so that we're consistent with them and that we can negotiate as they get older. So if you have a 4-year-old and their bedtime is 7 o'clock, for instance, or 7:30, as they get older, you're going to allow them to stay up a little bit later. You're going to allow them to have more screen time. You're going to allow them to have more, have a screen of their own. So it's important that we put the boundaries in place that are going to actually work. Then we have to look at the consequences. So it would be fantastic if we said to our kids, okay, don't run across the road, because that big black thing will drive into you and hurt you seriously. And that they'll go, okay, I believe you, I take on board. So we have some kids that will have to find out things for themselves. So, you know, maybe one of the kids will stand there and go, I'm not sure if I believe you. And I think I might actually just step out and see what happens when this big truck is coming towards me. But what we need to do then is have consequences that are going to actually impact on them. And people overthink and they worry about consequences. You know, will this damage my child in the long term? Unless you're beating up your child or slapping your child, it's not going to have a long-term detrimental impact. In actual fact, it's going to have a positive impact on them, because they're going to know where the line is. And that's a big thing, especially with a lot of the teenagers that I work with, is that they don't have those boundaries or structures in place, so they can't stop themselves from going too far. So then what happens is that they feel out of control. So they need to be allowed to get somebody to put that control and structure in place for them so they can feel safe. We need to help our kids to feel safe. So that's why they have to have boundaries. So what you have to do is sit down and look at the current boundaries and consequences that you have for your kids, for your 4-year-old, sorry. If they're not working, what are the things that are actually going to impact on them? So is bed early going to work? Is time out going to work? Is a lack of screen time? Is, you know, whatever, taking favorite toys away for a bit? What are the things that are going to actually impact on my child and make them realize that doing this behavior or being ill-disciplined is actually not worth it? And that's how you can start to do it. The other thing I would say is that if there's 2 parents involved, or if there's grandparents involved in bringing up the child, is get them to buy into what the boundaries and consequences are, so that they're backing you up. Because sometimes what can happen is one parent will say, this is the boundary, and another parent will go, maybe don't so hard on them. You guys need to have the conversation about what the boundary is and how you're going to actually implement it. So have a chat, decide between both of you or whoever else is involved in taking up the kids, what are the consequences, what are the boundaries, and put them in place. It's going to be a bit of trial and error. Some of them, your son is going to go, not bother with that at all. I don't care if you take that off me, or I have to go to bed at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I don't care, because I'm just going to shout and scream. But that's where you look at the other things. You look at the things that might actually impact. Okay. Let's get one more in. Hi, Jennifer. How are you? Okay. Our friends were broken into while they were away. Lost some jewelry and a few other things. They have 2 young girls aged 9 and 5. And not surprisingly, the girls are not sleeping at all well, which adds stress to the family. Thoughts as to what they should do, and suggested words of comfort. Well, I suppose first things first, horrible to hear that has happened, and it's such an intrusive thing to have happen in your life, to have somebody break into your house. And, you know, I suppose some of us will have sentimentality over things like jewelry or certain possessions, but I think, when a break-in takes place, it's as much the intrusion and knowing somebody that's come in and has gone through your own personal belongings. That's such a tough thing to do. What I would say is that for the kids, they are very aware of what's happened. So I think it's going to be important to acknowledge that it's happened and not try and hide it. They know, they're aware of it. The other thing is, right now, what's happening to them is that they're working from an emotional state when it comes to sleep. So logically, you will explain to them, everything's fine, guys. They're not going to come in when we're here. We're away, and we have an alarm and blah blah blah. So you don't need to worry about it. But you see, we're talking about logic there, and what's happening is the not sleeping is an emotional response. And that's where we need to deal with them. So firstly, I would say, let them know that it's okay to be upset by it. Look at the routine. Look at where they may start to calm down and get things out. They're at a good age where if they want, get them a little notebook to write down how they're feeling going to bed, just before bed. And then that allows them to get it out of their own heads and onto a page. You could also look at, maybe getting some fairy doors to, have fairies that might help protect them for a short while they need that extra bit of support. That could work too. Sometimes we never know what's going to be the thing that's going to actually help them to calm themselves down. The other thing is, if it's happening long term, you may need to look at getting a professional in. So what we do in Help to Parent is a program called logosynthesis, which helps to release that energy that we've attached to something that's happened. It works very, very effectively. So you could go and look for your local logosynthesis practitioner. Google it. It sounds complicated, but it's just really, really simple, but really, really effective, and especially with children. And if you can't find the information that you need, please come back to me. Drop me an email, and I'll converse with you, and we'll sort something out around it. But that can help to shift that fear away from where they're at, and console them. Just let them know it's okay to be upset about it, and that as a family, you're all going to start to move on together. I hope that helps a bit. Right, I do have another couple of questions, but we're going to pause it because these are 20 minutes and we've gone over. So until next week. Now, next week, I think we're going to move it to Wednesday just for one day. No, we're not going to move it to Wednesday. We're going to move it to, I don't know yet. I'll have to let you know. But I hope you guys have a good week. Please keep sending the questions. I'm loving the interaction. I'm loving the opportunity to get to speak to people and for people engaging with it. And yeah, check out our Help Me to Parent podcast, and you'll be able to recap on all this stuff. Thanks a million. And oh yeah, don't forget to give us a little rating. Thanks a million. You have a good day too, Josephine. Take care. Bye-bye.